Are you ready for the big homecoming this week? Special former Cleveland Guardian is coming home. It's an Rosario. Go crazy. Oh, and Eric Haase is back too. That's exciting.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. Today's show is brought to you by birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB, enter the promo code LockedOnMLB for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take off your bird dogs, we promise you. Listen, you and I had, the minute Eric Haase was cut, you and I had discussed it. We're going to get into him. Before we dive too deeply, I just want to say, listen, this team overachieved a year ago and had near perfect health. This year, they've had tons of injuries. They haven't had Tristan McKenzie for what? He was here 1.5 starts. And the regression isn't so much regression as maybe some luck balancing. The sky is falling is not the case. If we fired this front office, they would have jobs tomorrow. And firing your front office and coaching staff has worked so well for the Cleveland Browns. Why is this the Cleveland go-to? Time to tear it all down. Why do we have, frankly, such a loser mentality of like, hey, this is the most successful run this organization's had. They're struggling at 500 this year. Let's just burn it to the ground. Like, I don't understand why this team is literally had the best run outside of the 2 World Series champions and the 90s. This is the 4th best run in the history of the franchise. They haven't had a top 10 pick since Clint Frazier. That's how successful they've been. Yeah, it'd be nice if they had some more money to spend, and we're hoping new ownership will fix that. But why people complain about us having this mentality? They're only a few games back, but why are we always inundated with people like they're bad? Everything's bad. Fire everyone and start over. Have you watched what the Royals have done? Who have a bottom 5? They had that great run, but then you know what? We all knew Dayton Moore wasn't great. And we watched them and their bottom 5 farm system, bottom 5 record. What have the Tigers done since the spending days? We see the White Sox had 2 good years up. I mean, there are teams who get stuck in that bottom swirl and never get out. So I think people need to just calm down, back away, and get out of this. Like I said, frankly, what I view is kind of this like loser mentality of like, oh, tear it down. Who are you bringing in?
I think it's fair to question the process, and even you have said this over the last couple of months too about brain drain, losing different guys to different organizations. That has an impact, and and to be fair, I think that Antonetti and Chernoff in the front office, everybody will take a look this offseason. They will take a step back and figure out what went wrong.
Yeah. Nolan Jones got a higher OPS than Corbin Carroll right now.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll, who's going to win Rookie of the Year running away. Although Corbin Carroll, for what it's worth, I think is playing through a shoulder injury too after he got hurt. So that's probably why it's gone down. But that's neither here nor there. I think they will take a look this offseason to figure out what went wrong. I think you have to. I think they probably also feel like they overachieved last year too. And like you said, there was health. And you probably got a little bit lucky in terms of pitching. Like, Bieber was great. McKenzie was great. You survived with Zach Plesac all year long somehow until the end. The pitching wasn't, Cal Quantrill probably overpitched himself last year, and he was healthy and durable. And like we talked about yesterday, the offense is mediocre. The bullpen was healthy. You had a lot of young guys come together. It was kind of a perfect storm. And that's not to say that this team can't be capable of contending again, but this roster has a lot of flaws. They have a lot of young players, and you've got to make sure you're getting it right. They have invested. We've been talking about this for years. We've been talking about these prospects for years. We're talking about Valera. We were talking about Will Brennan for a couple of years. We're talking about Gabby Arias, talking about Rocchio, talking about Freeman. We've talked about a couple of these prospects, Stephen Kwan for a couple of years at the very least, right? So you've got to bank that this core is the guys you've gotten to the majors along with your pitchers now are it. These guys are either the guys you can make the postseason with and contend for a World Series with, or you have the guys in your system you feel like you can trade to go get what you need, which hasn't been the case so far. They've done more trading for things they don't need than things they have, and they've let guys get away who they could use. So I think it's totally fair to say you should question some of the things that have happened here because this has gone wrong. I mean, you freaked out yesterday saying it's a failure that they are playing Cole Calhoun and Ramon Laureano almost every day right now. It's a failure that that's happening when you have one of the best. You thought you had one of the best systems in the minors, and you thought that you have the youngest roster in baseball. You shouldn't be playing those guys, but the fact they don't have the depth to cover it is a problem, especially a year after winning the division and getting to the playoffs, and you went out and you decided to move on from your offseason acquisitions. That's the other thing too, is they have to look at is they don't sign free agents well. Outside of Edwin Encarnacion, I can't think of a free agent signing that has really gone well here. Like they've all been pretty poor going back quite a few years. So I think it's okay to sit here and say there are things that are not working. The process can be questioned, but I agree. It's a little bit harsh to say, burn it all down and start over. That doesn't work. I mean, like you said, since 2013, they have been a very good organization. Okay, 2015 was not good. 2021 was not good. This year is not good. That's 4 years out of the last decade that have been, questionable at best. And they're still outside of 2021. They have hovered the 500 mark. They were hovering 500 in 2020 and 2019 and 2018 or 2019. They hovered 500. Or I'm sorry, 2015 they hovered 500. 2019 they actually won 93 games, which was the second most wins to not get a playoff spot in the wild card era behind their own 2005 team. This year it's not good. 2021 was a miserable year, but I don't think this is 2021. I think this is like, I don't know, I can't pinpoint it, but I think they need to go back to the drawing board and kind of reassess things, but I don't think you need to go and throw down a stick of dynamite and start it over, because you're right, that doesn't work.
And I think the other thing too, it's like for everyone who wants to talk about the failure, I think part of the issue too, it's like, the farm system isn't as strong, but they did graduate 3 really awesome starters. Like they're still obviously
that's fine. I'm talking
pitching
position player wise, it's been a problem.
And I mean, what needs to be done is the thing that I think if you're going to come down on 2 things, it's if you want to bang on him about, I think this past year of free agency, you don't bang on him about. Like Bell was everyone and their mother, everyone outside thought that was, I think a lot of people I know in the industry thought that was a fantastic signing. And again, look at the catcher market. Virtually every catcher outside of Sean Murphy who changed hands has been crap. So they swung on those. If you want to go back, the dumpster diving with Eddie Rosario in years past, totally. I think that's stuff you rip on. And again, I think you can also go after ownership who needs to invest more. Like it's embarrassing when you're a bottom.
But even the money they have
no
spent,
matter what it is,
the front office hasn't spent well. Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne were a failure. These two free agents were a failure. The outside of Edwin Encarnacion, who was the highest paid player, until they decided to extend
is almost always a failure. Like
it is. Oh, absolutely.
Be honest about that. Like that's
this whole free agent class is stunk.
Yeah, unless you go for the top of the class. Like honestly, it's like what if you want to be successful, the approach is not free agency because you're paying for past success, and that's never good. It's you want to be using that money to extend your own guys, and then using some of this pitching depth that you have it, and trying to do those 3-team deals, trying to find another Franmil Reyes trade where instead of flipping, if they flip Bieber, instead of flipping him for a bunch of prospects, or like, what they did with Lindor, where they got 2 guys to come in and help now. That's what they need to be figuring out. And, again, I think the front office does a really good job. I'll stand with that one. I think, free agency is a mess. I wish they had more. And that's part of the problem of not, being a consistent bottom 5 payroll team is they have to scrimp more. And that's going to lead to failures in free agency.
Well, they have to be better on the margins, and that's the problem. They've never been good on the margins in terms of the roster. Like in 2013, you had Yan Gomes, Ryan Rayburn, Jason Giambi was kind of the veteran there. I know he had that big home run against the White Sox. That was fun.
But when you have a bottom 5 payroll, you can't afford to go get those guys. You can't afford to have good talent on the bench. You brought in Yan Gomes and Mike Aviles for Esmil Rogers. That was a stupid trade for the Blue Jays, obviously, number one, but it was a good move by the Guardians. Those are the kind of trades they need to do well at, right? You can't have the well-bet. I mean, Steven Hajar and I don't know, Justin Boyd's been on all year. Steven Hajar and Juan Brito might be good players, but you can't afford to miss on those trades. You can't afford to miss on the Junior Camaneros and Tobias Myers. Those are trades when you are a franchise like this. If you can't pay the money to cover your mistakes, you have to be good in those trades. That's where the Guardians
and Chris Antonetti have always been good. They have always done good, picking people's pockets for trades and doing better. I mean, we love the Kluber trade. We love the Clevenger trade. The Lindor trade has really, borne some fruit. I mean, they have done it. The Bauer trade worked out for them, I would say, because Reyes was good for a couple of years and Puig was good in 2019.
The Edwin deal really doesn't work out big picture because of the pieces traded to Tampa and that with Yandy going out. The Junior Caminero will have, it's like that. It's the smaller stuff that really hasn't worked out.
Yes, and that's the problem, right? Because when you are a franchise that runs a payroll like this, those are the things you have to be good at. And I realize it. I think people need to realize this. It's hard to be good at those trades. Like every front office for the most part is pretty smart. Like not everybody is Tampa Bay or the Dodgers, who are extremely smart. The Guardians are smart. They've had a lot of how many GMs in baseball now used to work for Cleveland? You've got Minnesota and Chicago, Minnesota, Chicago, Arizona, Boston, Pittsburgh, Toronto. All those guys who are GMs were all former Cleveland guys. They are like the Bill Belichick tree of.
I don't know if you want to give them that comp since the Belichick tree has been just
all those guys. Well, those guys aren't good. I mean, the Blue Jays, outside of the Blue Jays, the rest of those. I mean, the Ben Cherington hasn't done a great job. Neil Huntington didn't do great.
I mean, he got into the playoffs. He broke that long. Getting that Pirates team to the postseason
was that him though, or was that somebody else? Yeah, I don't know.
It was him.
But I mean, they haven't been that successful outside of Cleveland. But the point is, like Cleveland has sent a lot of guys out to other teams, talent wise, in the front office. So that's worth talking about. But they do need to be better on the marginal trades because of the franchise they are. All right, they did bring back one guy who they made a mistake in letting go too soon, even though I don't know if it's going to make a big impact now. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some September call-ups, if George Valera is worth looking at in September, and some rehab news going on and off day on Locked On Guardians. Jeff loves his bird dogs. He's holding up his hat. If you're watching on TV, he's wearing his hat. He's holding up his tumbler. It's not just the hat, though. It is the shorts. I don't think. Oh, he's going to show you shorts. Okay, if you're watching on YouTube, this is PG. He's still showing you his shorts here. Jeff and I both love bird dogs. I told you before. I've worn them bowling. I took them on my honeymoon. I wear them to family outings. Like I wear these things everywhere. They are so comfortable. They are versatile. They make you feel good. Didn't think I was going to be a big fan of the liner in the shorts, Jeff. I got to be honest. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, I wear short sleeve everything, and I don't like the cuffs on the sleeve. I thought I wouldn't like the feeling.
The liner's great.
Extra. Yeah.
No, the liner's fantastic. It makes you look good.
Yeah.
Definitely go get a pair for yourself. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB. Enter promo code LockedOnMLB, and you can get that free white tech hat that Jeff's been talking about with your order. birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or promo code LockedOnMLB for that free white tech hat. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. I wear my bird dogs almost every day, and we've got some new stuff from them. Tuesday night, Guardians are hosting the Dodgers. It's the Ahmed Rosario homecoming game. You can listen to Ahmed Rosario's homecoming on your Sirius XM app just by searching Guardians. I don't think searching Rosario will help you. I'm not sure what will come up there. Maybe a tennis match. I don't know. Are you excited for the Rosar coming, the Ahmed coming? I don't know. I don't really know how to.
Because here's the thing. Everyone likes to, again, what I'm tired of, it's like people get so, why is it guys leave here and play better? It's Josh Bell had the good run. I haven't checked in recently. Ahmed is being used properly. But does everyone remember when everyone was like, does everyone remember when Owen Miller was the talk of the town? It's like, we need more of a sample size. So it's, if he comes and has a good weekend, it's good. I mean, Owen Miller's back in AAA, I believe. Like they went out and traded for 63-year-old Carlos Santana, who I love to death, but they went and traded for Carlos Santana to replace Owen Miller on the roster. And I believe he is actually 66 and now qualifies for Social Security. It's an issue where everyone wants to just jump in and see things when they're angry. And I feel like the anger since the trade deadline is just so high that people are looking for every reason to be mad when, again, I'm going to say, I don't know how you can watch this team and think they are good.
Right. The other day, you're talking about like, oh, these teams they're 2, 3, 4 games back. That's great. they're 10 games below 500. They are not a 500 team. I don't
No.
care who you're close to in the standings. I care about the record. I'm not comparing myself to the Minnesota Twins. I'm comparing myself to the Orioles, the Rays, the Rangers, the Astros. Are you as good as those teams? You are not anywhere close.
No,
You are.
They can't score
Guardians
runs
are
against the bad teams.
No, they're 7 games below 500. I mean, even if you're like, 60 and 66 or whatever, I don't care. You're not as good as any of those teams that are in third place. Like right now, again, the Yankees are 60 and 64. They would be ahead of the Guardians in the standings in the Central. Like, sorry, like you said, if you watch this team, and you can't even sit there and say that Savali and Bell and Rosario were holding this team together, because that was true.
Didn't help because the pitching
My
staff
God,
you don't got to worry about.
Right, but if those were the guys that were like keeping this team together, you weren't going very far in the first place. Let's be honest, because Josh Bell was horrible. Why? If Josh Bell had played so good, that he wouldn't have been traded, because the Guardians would have been in a better spot offensively. Same with Amed Rosario. They wouldn't have traded him if he hit the way he used to hit, and they would have been in a better spot. Defensively, it was a crap show. Anyway, I'll be interested to see what happens. I'm sure Amed will have a great series against Cleveland, although there's no lefty playing, so who knows if he'll play that much, because Logan Allen's not pitching. Anyway, Eric Haase, we should have talked about this yesterday. We ran out of time. We were still trying to fit into the 30-minute window that they're giving us to do podcasts these days, unfortunately, so we didn't have time for it. But you and I both agreed. I think Saturday we found out the news Eric Haase was DFA'd by the Tigers. Said bring him back home. Zach Collins was already up, and I'm like, Eric Haase is immediately better than Zach Collins. Is Eric Haase going to turn this team around, and all of a sudden they're going to be like some great team with lots of depth? No, they're not. But we both loved Eric Haase coming up as a prospect. He's got power. He's played some outfield. I don't know if I really would play him in the outfield, but he can do it. He's hit lefties well in the past. He's got power. He used to be a better defender. He's having a down year. I would still consider him an upgrade over Zach Collins. I guess we'll see how long Eric Haase is here, depending on what happens with Cam Gallagher and David Fry, whenever David Fry comes back, because he wouldn't be here if those guys were healthy. But now that he's here, I'd like to see what he can do the rest of the year and see if he is a guy to bring back next season.
And you and I talked about it, that he was one of like their 5 biggest mistakes in this offseason in terms of players that got away. And for people who are like, oh, he's terrible this year. Yeah, he is. But I want to point a few things out. One, this year he has a negative split versus lefties, which is interesting because if you count this year, his career versus left-handed lefties, he's got a 96 weighted runs created plus. He's pretty much league average. Against righties, he's at a 79. And this year he's at like a negative 13. So there's something weird with his splits. And then the other thing that makes me wonder if he's playing through injury is last year he was 64th percentile in pop time, 63rd percentile in hard hit, and 59th percentile in barrel. But he is a terrible framer. His framing is up to 50% this year, but his pop time is down to 25th percentile. His hard hit's at 24. His barrel is at 16. Something's weird with his swing. Like he's not getting out of his pop as quickly. He is 30. He's an exceptional athlete for a catcher. For those who don't remember him here, a 2011 draft pick, right? Part of that Lindor draft class, Michigan kid, committed to Ohio State.
We love him already because of that. We know that.
Great athlete for the catcher position. Was a catcher / second baseman at high school. Became basically a non-prospect at one point in time. Like catching takes a while to develop, and he worked and he worked and he worked and he turned himself back into a prospect. He has legitimate.
He reworked his swing completely.
Yeah,
he had to rework his swing because the swing he had was not work. Eric Haase has always had a lot of power. He just wasn't getting to it because of his swing. So in Double-A, he had to use like hit tracks and a bunch of other get a lot of feedback from some data tracking tools with the blast motion, all that kind of stuff. He had to use all that to rework his swing, and then he did, and he became a real prospect again. So he, like you said, he worked hard and he used the tools that were available to do that.
Yeah, and he has legitimate plus power. So, and he's a lefty killer, and I think he can't, and we talked about it, his sprint speed has always been in the red. He runs pretty well. I don't know what his defense in the outfield is, but I think in a lot of respects, he's plus David.
Is he worse than David? I was going to say, is he worse than David Fry in the outfield?
I don't know if he's defense-wise, but it's like he's a better runner than Fry. He's got better raw power than Fry. He's probably a better natural catcher than Fry. So I think he overlaps a lot with what Fry brings. So I'm hoping this isn't just for this year. I think he was a guy I was sad when they let him go because I thought he had future backup, platoon catcher all over him. And again, he just one of those players that the last 2 years before this, he was an above league average bat. He was Detroit's best hitter in 2022. So I think there is something to be seen. So yeah, I went back and pulled up a -12 weighted runs created plus against lefties this year, while being over 100 for the entire rest of his career outside of this year. So something is up. Hopefully they can figure it out. And you might have just found that backup catcher. He's not going to be the defender that Cam Gallagher is, but he can at least be average and offensively. If he is closer to normal, I mean,
at the very least, you can platoon him. And David Fry doesn't have to be your backup. He can be your Swiss Army knife. Yeah. So if you have Eric Haase, it kind of frees David Fry to do some different things. And they can both play against lefties. You can have David Fry somewhere against lefties, and you can have Eric Haase somewhere against lefties. And I'm not saying you want to platoon Bo Naylor a lot, because at some point he has to play against lefties. But giving yourself whether Fry's in right field or first base, or Valera, or not Valera, we're talking about him next, but Haase is in left or at DH or first base. Like, you got yourself some options there against lefties, and this team has always done better when they've had platoon advantages. And if that's something you have to, again, this goes back to the conversation we're having. The Ryan Rayburns, the Brandon Geyers, those guys,
the Ahmed Rosario.
Anyway, this team has always excelled when they've had those kind of players, because that's what they have to do as an organization, because you don't have if you don't have the star outfielder or things like that, you need the platoon advantages. And that's what those guys have done in the past. And that's what, guys like Fry and possibly Haase can do for you. It's worth seeing if he can bag a back catcher. I hope that Haase is here. Nothing against Cam Gallagher, but when Cam Gallagher does get healthy, I would much like to see Eric Haase stick around. And
I agree.
We'll see what happens. I don't want to kick.
There's a world where he is one of their, 4 to 5 best hitters next year. Like, if he rebounds and gets back to being, again, in terms of, for his season this year, again, it's not great, but you go back to 2022, he had a 112 weighted runs created plus a year ago. He had 22 home runs the year before that. Like, there's a way where this guy is a productive part of your team.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to talk about George Valera coming up, some prospect promotions, some rehabs going on. So stick with us on Locked On Guardians. Tuesday night, I believe, we have Noah Syndergaard and Bobby Miller. That is quite the juxtaposition matchup. Noah Syndergaard was Bobby Miller when he debuted. You can listen to those two go at it on your Sirius XM app just by searching Guardians. That should be interesting. Clayton Kershaw's pitching Wednesday too. I believe that's against Xavier Curry. I'm excited to see that. I've never seen Kershaw pitch in person, so that'll be a lot of fun. This should be an interesting series. I'm sure Ahmed Rosario will not go 5 for 11 with a home run and a double. I'm sure that won't happen.
He is 100% going to do that.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of prospects and getting hot, George Valera has been, I don't want to say he's been on a tear lately, but he's looked better. He had two home run games in a row. He had a 2 home run game on Thursday and Friday. Saturday? Thursday, Saturday. I think the game got canceled Friday. Thursday and Saturday. So the batted ball data says that things have been getting better for him lately. I know it's been another season where he's had a hard time staying on the field in terms of injuries. It's been the hamate again. It's been the hamstring again. He started and stopped a few times. It's, unfortunately been a trademark of his career at this point that he'd like to shake. We'd all like him to shake it. Look, Will Brennan and Oscar Gonzalez have not laid claim to this job. They have not played like they deserve playing time right now. If there is any hope, I shouldn't say hope, if there is any reason for Cleveland to think that 2024 is the year that George Valera should make an impact on this roster and they need his bat, because this is a guy who has power and they have been banking on for a couple of years coming through, bring him up, because you can let him get acclimated to the major leagues late in the year here, and you don't necessarily need him to play every day. Obviously, you want to call him up and sit him on the bench, but if you want him to be a part of your big league roster next year and make an impact and be part of the solution that this offense needs, he could still retain rookie eligibility for next year. So if you're really concerned about that draft pick, you don't have to play him every day.
Maintain that now.
Yeah, at this point,
for any player.
Yeah, and you can help George. Like George is going to know a lot of these guys anyway because he's played in the minors with them. But he can show up and he can learn the ropes a little bit, know what's expected of him, get comfortable with the coaches, get comfortable in the clubhouse, play a couple of games in the majors. And he should get playing time because let's be honest, Will Brennan and Oscar Gonzalez. I'm not saying give up on Will Brennan because I still like Will Brennan, but I'm not going to say the same for George Valera or for Oscar Gonzalez. But I'm sorry, George Valera, if you want to be a part of your roster next year, get him acclimated because it's not like Will Brennan's playing so well that you cannot not give him at bats.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. One of the reasons this team has fallen apart is that right field last year, Oscar Gonzalez, if anyone had listened to the show, we said people got mad at us with them telling this isn't maintainable. And that's turned from, he was an above average producer to they've turned into Miles Straw Jr. with Will Brennan so far this year out there, unfortunately. And that's another massive drop off. There's nothing to lose by calling up Valera. It starts his service time clock a little early, but he's not going to likely start the team next year with them, and you figure it out. And then health is the big bugaboo, and it's a question of if he can maintain health. I have a hard time knowing where I'm going to even rank him in my prospect list because
how about this? Showcase him. Bring him up and showcase him. Bring him up and showcase him. If he plays well, he's got trade value in the offseason. You can go trade him for a healthier outfielder. There you go. Showcase. I am all about showcasing now. Okay. That is the new direction of this podcast. We are all about showcasing. We are going to be card counters, whatever they say in Moneyball. We are all about showcasing.
I'm very curious to see what else they do in terms of promotions and showcasing. I know we wanted to talk about some of that. So with some of our time, should we jump over? I think who knows what Valera is going to be and who knows if he's going to trip over his own 2 feet and break both of his arms and then have to be in a cast for 18 months. But
he's going to hit his head on the car door opening and driving it to Cleveland,
Yeah.
Who knows?
He's going to break his hand taking his shirt off.
No, only Zach Plesac does that. Okay, come on now. Kyle Manzardo has played a couple rehab games in Arizona. That's really exciting. I think he probably needs some time in Columbus before you can call him up. But I think he's another guy where you should consider a September call up for him as well, because that's a guy who, God, I think you hope he's going to be your opening day first baseman next year, right?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not get him up here at the end of the year? Get him same thing. Get his feet wet.
Chance he could win you a draft pick.
Right. And he's a guy you want to be an immediate solution next season. That's why you traded for that guy, because you wanted him to be an immediate solution to the offense because you need to solve that problem. So if he's a guy who can do that, you can get a draft pick for him, possibly for him playing. I don't know what the rookie class is going to be good next year. It's going to be hard. Let's be honest, because you're going to have Paul Skeens probably. You're going to have maybe Dylan Cruz. You're going to have.
Well, that's all the other side of it. You don't have to worry about anything in the American League.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're going to have some Baltimore Oriole probably. I don't know. You're going to have a bunch of good guys, so it's going to be a problem. So I don't know, but it's worth a shot, and it's worth bringing them up again for the same reason. Get these guys comfortable at the big league level. If you want them to contribute next year, get some of the jitters and the butterflies out of the way in September when there's no race going on because they're out of division, and they can just get comfortable and play a couple of games, and you can get them ready for next season and get comfortable. So I would say, yeah, if Manzardo is healthy enough in his rehab to go play a few games in Columbus, get him up in Cleveland, get Valera up, get Cody Morris up. Beyond that, I don't know. That's the only 3 guys I can really think of. Cal Quantrill had a rehab start on Sunday. He was bad. I don't know. Joey Cantillo. He's been pitching the same day as Noah Syndergaard since Syndergaard got here. If he pitches on Tuesday, Syndergaard pitches Tuesday, those two will continue to line up. I'm not saying, but would you really put 5 rookies in the rotation between Curry, Bobby Williams, Allen, and Cantillo? That's wild. But he deserves a look. He deserves it.
I'm not opposed to it. And for everyone, yes, Cal has had a bad year, But a lot of people are like, oh, designated for assignment. Yeah, he's going to get a nice little raise because they always get raises. But there's no, they held on to Plesac for 3 years of badness before they let go. They're not cutting Cal. He tried to play through hurt all year, and it basically
because they needed him.
That's the thing. Yeah, and you go back and you look at this team. Your top 3 starters at the start of the year were Bieber, who's missed more than half the season with injury, McKenzie, who again had 1.5 starts, and Quantrill was your number 3, who got hurt, pitched through it, and then made everything worse. It's kind of a miracle they're even close to 500 if you sit back and think about it. And for as much as Savale was the savior, he also missed 2 months of the season. So there's been some negatives, but boy, those young rookies have at least made this a season worth watching.
They sure have. And Cal Quantrill, you're going to probably want to hang on to him for next year too, because of the uncertainty with Bieber and McKenzie. And, he doesn't make that much money for a guy who could give you 150 innings and they could be league average at the worst. And, if anything, I'm not saying I want to trade Joey Cantillo, but we need to have a longer conversation at some point about the value in the system and who's got trade value and who you could flip. And Joey Cantillo might be one of those guys. If you've got, I don't know how many young players in the rotation you can really have. Like you have those big 3. I really do like Cantillo. I know you do as well. But like if there's somebody out there who's giving you an answer in the outfield, whether it's center field, right field, wherever, if there's somebody who says, we want Cantillo, here's a bat that you really need, we'll make this trade. I can't say no because you've got the other guys. And if you keep Cal Quantrill around, at least you have possibly a stable guy that you can keep in the rotation with those rookies. But that's the conversation for another day, obviously, just an idea.
Yeah, we'll get into it and we can debate all of it from there. But we appreciate everyone, all the everydayers, everyone commenting, leaving things. We understand the frustration is a frustrating year in general with this team. But again, I will say hold tight. That rotation has a chance to be
the division's still going to be winnable next year. Let's be honest. This division is going to stink again next year. And they could still win it next year.
One could argue they lost their 3 best pitchers to injury and their best hitter this year. Like for them to even not have completely bottomed out is kind of ridiculous. But
that's the other thing too.
Oh
yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, that's the other thing is you want to fire all these people. It's like for as much as we complain this season, everybody's complained about how they've been. There's a lot of teams out there that would have lost what the Guardians have lost this year, and they would have been god awful. Maybe you benefit a little bit from playing. No, they didn't. I can't even say it's the division because they played the crap against the Tigers. But the fact they hung around as long as they did, and the fact they're still within earshot of 500, I think still says a lot. For as much as we complained, that there's a lot of other franchises that would have been even worse. They would have just completely gone into the tank.
Agreed.
But hurt for Kurtz. Hurt for Kurtz.
We'll see. Like I said, for me, it's more about the development of the young guys because anyone that drafts unlikely to help very quickly. So let's just see guys break out, continue to see improvements as you'll continue to see improvements on the show. So thank you all again for joining us. We appreciate all of you, even with my rant. And go Guardians, go.